Thanks everybody for attending our monthly system admin Issuetrak webinar. I have a brief window. I'll be muting myself because dogs, kids, and flying animals will be interrupting us. But first of all, thanks everybody. We appreciate this. Just reminding everybody the purpose of these came about from just working with our installed base of customers and seeing that rollover of the system admins and diving in and working with our customers and realizing that, hey, there's a tremendous amount of capabilities in the product that people didn't even realize. Like I was on the phone yesterday with somebody, they didn't even know about the task manager, and they're doing compliance work. So this is just that ongoing rolling that out. So we want to support you all as people come and go in your organizations, as well as just upping your Issuetrak proficiency. So we do hold them the second Thursday of each month. We are skipping January. Just it's too busy with all the holidays and PTO and all the comings and goings. So we have ours today. Then the next one would be the second Tuesday in February. It's a 2-hour block. We realize that's a lot. Come and go as time permits. We also takes about 2 days, and Andrew Gerasi gets these published on the issuetrak.com website under the resources drop down. Feel free to ask any questions. I'll be myself and whoever on professional services is not presenting will be monitoring either the chat or the Q&A forums. Feel free to use those. We'll either answer those or we'll just incorporate it to the presenter to take care of it as a live question. So for today, we're going to follow our typical format. We do a 45-minute presentation on a usage of Issuetrak. So we're doing the presentation we've done at our user conference. One of the most successful breakout sessions is really expanding your Issuetrak within your organization, how to leverage the capabilities within the product. We do a 30-minute deep dive. In this case, we're talking about phase 2 of the Issue Hub. Phase 1 was nice. Phase 2 is truly impressive. And then we got to open it up, 15-minute Q&A session. So a little bit about us. I'm one of the account managers here. I'm a lot of your all's contact on the sales department. I've done sales my whole life, so I really focus on building those relationships. So when you change jobs, you're thinking of us if you need a issue tracking solution. Mike Wright, he's one of the senior product engineers here at Issuetrak. He's currently the longest standing issue tracker. He's done everything with the product. He's done development, he's done support, and he's really found his home in the professional services doing that. Let's see, and last, Paul Harris. Sorry, Paul. Paul came on a couple of years before me. He started on the technical support side, and he moved to the dark side, helping customers on the configurations. He's been here a little over 10 years as well. So with that, thanks everybody for your time. I'm going to go mute so my background noise is interrupting, and we'll turn it back over to Mike.
Well, everyone, thank you for attending today. We're going to talk a little bit about expanding Issuetrak. And the reason we like to talk about it is because we have a lot of customers that do more than one thing with Issuetrak. And that's what we want to focus on today. Why would you expand? What's the reasons for it? How can you expand Issuetrak? What reasons can you even decide what you want to do? So we're going to look at it from a couple of different perspectives today. Now, I'm going to skip through my introductory. You've already seen that one. So this is the question that Paul, myself, and Tony get a lot. Can Issuetrak be used too? And we put blank in there because honestly, I have no idea what I'm going to be asked next. One of my nicknames within the company is the Wizard of Oz, because if Tony has a question and he can't answer it, he's going to come to me and say, can we do this? And for the most part, my answer is going to be yes, but there are sometimes I am going to say no. And sometimes it's an answer in between and I've got to get more information. So that's why that last one is in here. I don't know. I mean, but I get that question, can you do this? Now, the reason you come with that is because you've got a problem that you need to resolve. And sometimes it's a new customer, sometimes it's an existing customer, and they sometimes will get say, hey, look, I see you using Issuetrak for this. I get something that's similar that I need to do. Can we do this? And then that's when we try to get into that investigation portion of the engagement with them, with one of our customers or a prospect, and we decide what we want to do here. So expanding Issuetrak, it's about capabilities that we have. So I'm going to take you back in time before pre-COVID, 2019. Back in November of that, we went ahead and had our 2019 user conference here in Norfolk. And then what we did is we did a little presentation that was kind of interesting. Paul and I are standing on a stage. There's about 100 people. Tony's out in the audience, and we're all kind of sitting around. And the audience is about 100 or so Issuetrak users, customers for the most part, and they're all kind of around tables and everything like that. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of look at two things, and I'm going to start with industries. Let's take a look at this industries list that I have up on the screen right now. Very diverse. A lot of products that you run into these days, they're focused on one or two industries, and they're purpose-built, or they're almost purpose-built for that industry. Issuetrak is not like that, so we're very broad-based on the industries that we deal with. Well, we wanted people to get to know each other. We wanted them to talk to each other. So it'd be almost impossible to go to look at all of these industries that were in the room and have a good conversation. So what we did is we kind of broke them down into general industry groups: banking and finance, education, healthcare, government, manufacturing, service. So here Paul and I are sitting up on that stage, and we say, okay, people, move to a group. And we have these Issuetrak users with a sign up in the air, and it's got banking and finance, and people would gather. And then we had them talk amongst themselves, introduce themselves, talk about their company, talk about what they were using Issuetrak for, to just share experiences through an industry of what Issuetrak was doing. And what we found was when they started talking about what Issuetrak was being used for, that even within the industry was very broad-based. So then we had people play musical chairs. We're going to jump now. So we brought up different signs, and the signs this time were about usages. So we're talking about how a particular Issuetrak usage is set up. And again, as you can see, very broad-based. So we're looking at different usages within companies. Sometimes you would have a company that had multiple usages. So what we did again is we played the same musical chairs, and we broke it down again into groups: complaints, help desk, service and work request, issue tracking, and customer support. And people broke out into groups. What was interesting though is some companies had more than one person there, and they would send more than one person. So they would have one person go to help desk, they'd have another one go to service desk, they have another one go to issue tracking, because they did all three of those within their Issuetrak environment. They used the product for more than one thing. Essentially, what we say sometimes is they drank the Kool-Aid. So they drank the Kool-Aid, they believe in Issuetrak, it's solving some problems for them, and it's in more than one area of their company. So this was the interesting part, because now you're seeing where usages are crossing over. Now, these companies that are involved, they're big and small. Government agencies, non-government agencies, but they all had common interests and common things that they were using the product for. It didn't matter about the industries. So here we learned this: commonality of usage across industries. If you're an HR site, you're an HR site. It doesn't matter what's going on. It's a usage is HR, and it doesn't matter about the industry. Now, you do things differently. You have different ways of doing things, but for the most part, you're basically handling onboarding requests, offboarding requests, user access, those type of things. And then the question came in, I didn't know you could do that with Issuetrak. Many of the attendees spoke to us afterwards and did not realize that we could use Issuetrak, or that Issuetrak could be used to track these many things. So it was a very much a surprise to the attendees. We knew it because we do this every day. But for those attendees, it was a very, very eye-opening idea. And like I said, size didn't matter. Big companies, small companies, a lot of the same things were being used independent of the size of the company. And a lot of times, everyone had a story. A lot of times is that the story was that they couldn't find something to do what they needed to do. They couldn't find the product built to do what they needed to do. So they came to Issuetrak and they finally found it. And when they found Issuetrak, we had enough flexibility built into the product in order to do the things they needed to do. And the expertise with Paul, myself, and the other staff members to be able to help them through that, the initial installation, the configuration, how we do it. And not all problems are unique. I hear this every once in a while. I get a brand new prospect, and that prospect comes to me and says, I'm not sure if you've ever done this before. Or the other one comes in here, I don't think your product is really set up to do this. And Paul and I just, you said no. Yes, we have. Yes, we have, because it's not much that between the three of us, we have over 30 years of experience, probably closer to 40 years of experience between all three of us now, of dealing with customers and dealing with different issues. We're starting now to run into things we've run into it before. There's not many things we haven't run into or similar things, but every once in a while there is. So not all problems are unique. They can be very similar. They're not all the same, but they are similar. So we've done this before in a lot of cases, but we've never heard all of it. You're always running into something new. Tony is very famous for bringing us new challenges that Paul and I have to go ahead and try to work with. So that was 2019. So what does that mean to this webinar? Well, as an attendee, you want to hear more about how you can solve other opportunities or problems, whatever you want to call them, other than the one you're currently using Issuetrak for. So you have questions. Have we worked with someone who has done this before? Like I said, most of the time the answer is yes. What are the advantages of expanding? So if you've got an instance of Issuetrak, what advantage is it to expand Issuetrak? And what are the disadvantages? Because unfortunately, when you get advantages, you are going to have some disadvantages and you have to balance them. And then how do I proceed? So we go back in time again, and we go to the user conference in 2018. And in 2018, we did a presentation. This was actually a presentation that all three of us did. Paul, Tony, and I were on a stage, and we presented a presentation called Adding a New Usage. And we started looking at and talking about how you can put another usage into Issuetrak. And many of you today are attending this because you are interested in the same thing. I use Issuetrak for X. How can I also do Y? And can I do Z also? What can I expect it to be affected upon my existing Issuetrak system? What is going to be the advantages that I gain by expanding out? So let's talk about this. First thing, increase your return on investment in Issuetrak and manage your risk. So let's take a look at this from an IT support and acceptance. Many times we've come to, especially with new prospects and customers, to say, you know, IT is either one of our friends or one of our enemies in order to do some of these installations. So it just depends on how things go with your support team. But when you're expanding with a known product, you already have people who are trained to use Issuetrak. You have system admins that already exist that they can rely on. Now, sometimes it's a different team. I've run into that too, where it's a different team expanding out. And they're not really going to have as much access to that system admin. I run into that, but at least it becomes more of an easier transition, and they have someone in their own company they can talk to. Admins are familiar with features and setups. I just did a site, we just sold a site early November. Matter of fact, I believe it was the 13th day of November. We sold a site to an existing customer who expanded it out, and it was for COVID-19. They had an IT person who was familiar with Issuetrak. They went live with that site Tuesday. So they were able, because they were familiar with the product, to install, launch, and go within 30 days. Now, that gives you that confidence that the IT staff had confidence that Issuetrak could do the job. They had confidence that they could set it up quickly to meet a need that they had. So they were familiar with supporting the application, and their security risks are known. They've already been using Issuetrak. So these days, we're so security conscious of everything going on. Every day is another story of a big data breach, another hacking incident. You know, Issuetrak's been a good, solid, secure product for years. And that investment that you have already with a known product makes IT teams seem to be a little bit more confident that they have got a good product. Your infrastructure effects. Those are things that have to be discussed. You know, if you're going to expand within an existing site, do you want to bring up a new site? Are you going to do it on premise? So if you have an on-premise installation, do you want to set up a brand new site, or do you want to go ahead and go to Issuetrak Cloud? Some of our customers will do that. We have customers these days that are moving from premise to cloud or cloud to premise. It depends on how they want to do it, what the need is for that particular customer, and we're flexible enough to be able to do that. So talk to Tony, talk to Emma if you need to talk to someone about movement. Even our support team, they can give you information if you need that type of information. Your user experiences. If a customer has a user base and they've already been using Issuetrak, if you're going to use it for something else, they already know what to expect. They don't have that fear. So you have quicker staff acceptance. You're reducing the user's stress. And Lord knows, we don't need any more stress these days. Between everything that's going on in the world and everything going on with COVID-19, we don't need to have any more stress and frustration than we're already dealing with day to day. And then your financial impact with loss of productivity is also important, because now it's an easier transition. You don't have to have people say, oh, what do I do next? You know, how do you do this? Because they are already familiar with the tools. With Issuetrak, they can easily go ahead and transition into another usage because they know the tool sets. And when you're talking about management, because of course, as you all know, if you're going to expand, sometimes it's going to cost you some money in some manner. But when you go to management, say, hey, look, we want Issuetrak to do X, Y, and Z. We've already talked to Issuetrak. They said they can do that. They've done it before. They've shown us a eval of how it can be done. We already know what our costs are because Tony's given us a quote. We already have an established business partnership. You know our support team. You know our professional services team. You know our sales team. They're known factors. You don't have to worry about introducing new people and new relationships. You can just expand that current relationship. So you know what to expect from us as a partner with you, because that's how we like to feel. Our customers are our partners. We have a good relationship where we're going to try to help you as much as you help us. And that's what we try to do. So this is an important page here because it gives you confidence that you can be with Issuetrak, and we're going to tell you what the way it is. That's the way things are. So when you look at Issuetrak and you're looking at leveraging your investment with us, as you can see from here, these are dashboard panels, and these dashboard panels, if you can read them, show you that there are different types of issues in here, like the open issues by assigned department. I've got education, manufacturing, operations in here. So there are different departments that have already been assigned issues in here. By the types of issues, there everything in here from webinar stuff to customer service, human resources, payroll, shipping items. They cover the gamut. All of those within one site. Different location support, different customer and organization support. So the tools are already there. As you can see, we can put that information in and then display it on the management dashboard, as you see, because this is a screenshot of our dashboard. So some of the things to think about. It's just Issuetrak is not a single-use product. We don't use it for just one thing. We use it for multiple things. And in many cases, it's multiple things within one site. Why? Because we want to say, why do we want to do this? Well, we want to help. So where in your organization can we help you with communication between teams, making sure that everybody knows what's going on, collaboration between teams so that information is shared, movement of processes moves forward, compliance. A lot of times we get into these days, we're getting more and more things about compliance, both with auditing and regulatory compliance, trying to track items that are brought in or issues that are brought in and making sure that they are addressed and to meet our compliance needs within audits or with regulatory objects. And I cannot tell you how long and how many times I have heard about email bloat. Email is a great tool and a great not tool. It has so many different usages, but it's not always great as a communications tool across networks or outside of your own mailbox. So you get a lot of problems with email. So we've heard problems with, I've heard people with thousands of actual mailbox folders that they have used to keep their email straight. So we've run into that before. And then one that we run into also is Excel bloat. Excel spreadsheets are great tools, but I've talked to customers that said, I've got so many Excel spreadsheets, I can't keep up with where they all are, and I can't communicate them all together. So I need to do a better job. So what do? We can turn to Issuetrak to do some of that. So these are opportunity areas that you may have within your organization that Issuetrak may be able to help with you. Just depends on what you need to do. So now we've identified a need. How are we going to start doing this? Well, the key to a successful expansion is to plan. And Paul was very adamant on this one on that first session. Plan very much where we start everything. You need to analyze the needs both of the group that's already using Issuetrak and the needs of the group that you want to expand to, because they're important, because they are living within one site in some cases. And if they're doing that, then you need to understand both sides' needs to make sure that they can mesh well together. So that does take planning. We want to look at the users. Are the new groups users different from the ones that are currently in your site? It could be it's exactly the same user base. I've run into that before, where it's the same user base. We just want to add in something else. Many times we'll start with an IT help desk. Well, it's this user base, it's everybody in the company that are reporting problems. Well, guess what? Now let's add in facilities, HR, AP, different things like that. It's the same user base. We just put in different types of issues. Are there visibility concerns that need to be addressed? Again, let's stay with the same user base, but the issues now are payroll, HR, maybe they are complaints. Well, in that case, maybe I have some visibility issues because I don't necessarily want to have administrators that are in the IT department see some of those payroll issues or HR issues or complaint issues. So visibility can be a concern. What's some commonality about the items in drop-down boxes, list values, priority list, locations? Sometimes they're going to mesh well together. Sometimes they're going to conflict. So you have to examine that and decide whether they can live well together. In some cases, the answer is yes. In some cases, we have to make some changes. So we'll figure out what the changes are going to be. Additional issue features and capabilities needed to be enabled. Well, what does that mean? Well, Issuetrak has changed over the years. And as Tony mentioned earlier especially about task processing, we've added a lot of capabilities in Issuetrak. And what we tend to do is we set Issuetrak up to do a job, and we use these tool sets. And we use these tool sets year after year after year after year. And what happens is we get a very narrow focus and we don't move beyond the focus. So we stay and we do our job. Well, Issuetrak has additional capabilities. And I remember working with a customer and her eyes lit up one time. And she says, I didn't realize you could do this. I didn't know we had these other features. I didn't know we could do this. I keep asking you for these features and they're already there. I run into that time and time again with customers where all I have, well, did you go to the features page and look? It's right there. Turn it on, use it. We'll show you how to use it. We run into that a lot where you get narrow focus and you don't go beyond. When you get a release notes, read the release notes. When you get a notification from Issuetrak about a new feature, examine it. We've got pages that Paul especially is going to talk about as we go forward here about new capabilities. And we are expanding fast. We are giving new features fast. They may not be always a big feature, but you'll see small tweaks and small feature changes pretty consistently throughout a month. So be aware of that. Look for those blog posts. Look for all that information that we try to give you in order to know that, because if you add another group, you may want to add another feature. If you have another group that wants to come on board and you have a feature that you can both share and both of you can use it, it really is a good thing to do. So you examine that feature set and say, is it something we need to change or modify now? So we've looked at what needs to be done. Now we've got to talk a little bit about visibility and structures. Basically, when you expand Issuetrak, you're going to do it one of two different ways. One, you're going to expand within your current existing site. On the sides, one site, multiple usages. Here we said information technology and facilities. Well, really, it's the same user base. There's not any structure differences in here. All I have to do really is add in some more issue types, maybe some quick picks, restrict them, maybe, maybe not. It's just adding in a few more selections for the customer to choose, and configuring those selections. Like facilities issues need a different set of custom screens, they need a different setup, they need some user-defined fields, just different information. But they can coexist within that one site very easily. No visibility concerns really. If the IT manager sees a facilities issue, big deal. But let's take a look at the other one. IT human resources. Well, I think the human resources manager really doesn't want the IT manager or to be able to see the issues that are in HR, legal, sometimes regulatory. We get into all these different types of issues that where, maybe we don't want those administrators to see everything. So we need two sites. And I've set up many customers. The product, it's just another URL. And if you're using Active Directory, you don't even have to worry about a second login. It's the same login. Active Directory or ADFS, whatever you're logging in under, it's the same credentials. You just log in. We use one set of credentials for, I think, 5 sites we have internally with Issuetrak. They're all AD enabled. So we just go ahead and log in from site to site and website to website with no problem. So here, completely 2 separate set of users. The users in IT help desk, the IT manager essentially is the system admin. He sees everything, but in the HR site, he's a user. So now we've created another site. He has a different set of permissions, and those permissions are now for his usage within that site, not in the IT site. So it gives you that ability to change those user profiles. So as the benefits of one site with multiple usages. Processes and workflows for all departments are stored and managed in one place. You can go in there and do anything you want to in effects in here. Users only have to remember one website and login. And as like I said, if you happen to have Active Directory, it is one login. Agents covering multiple areas have one place to track their work. You may have someone in IT that's going to be involved in onboarding for HR. Well, it's all within one site. Management gets a view into everything at one time, so they can see everything in one place. And aggregating data from multiple departments and groups is possible because you can kind of put together everything. For example, I can see issues from a submitting point of view of a submitting department user. I can see what issues they have submitted across the entire company, depending on what I'm using this Issuetrak site for. Now, the next thing that we look at is on here, groups that can use one site with multiple usages. Now, these are normal groups that seem to be able to easily incorporate more than one. Information technology, facilities maintenance, accounting and finance, office management and operations, marketing, purchasing, customer service support, quality control, and insurance. Those are some. There just seem to be some generalities in here. So now let's look at some benefits of multiple sites. Access to highly confidential issues, PII, PCI, can be controlled. You don't have to worry about those items being exposed to the general public or to the general working clients. They're very well controlled within the users of that second site. The user base can be completely different. In some cases, like and I go back to the IT example, in the IT site, we had everybody there in facilities management, or we may have a quality control team. The only thing they have is a couple of quality users in there. They don't have everybody in the whole company. All they're doing is recording items. They don't need to have that access. Active Directory can be used in one site and not used in another, for example. We may not need Active Directory in the second site. Now, I'll talk about that also. Modules come to play here a little bit, and I'm going to talk about just a little bit with this. Active Directory is a module. We sell it by licenses. If you have one site that needs Active Directory, you're going to pay for the Active Directory module. If you have another site that doesn't need it, you don't need those licenses to have Active Directory. So you can do it depends on what the need is, on how things are set up. Configuration and feature requirements are different. Like I said, there are different features in here. If you don't need AD in one place, you don't need it. If you need it, or if you need the billing module, if you need the survey module, in other words, you can go in there and add that second site and do a little bit more, or add additional modules or additional capabilities within Issuetrak, whether they happen to be paid features or just standard features. And you don't have to share ownership. A lot of times what happens when we talk about internal billings, and I'm going to use it as internal billings here. If IT help desk is using the site and facilities comes on, then there's an internal billing that says, okay, I'm kind of sharing the cost here. I'm expecting, 10% of the bill to be covered through the facilities management team. Well, if you set up a separate site, then we can set you up with different accounts, so we can cleanly cut between facilities and IT. So that's where ownership doesn't have to be shared. Also, decisions about the site belong to the owner. So IT owns IT, facilities owns facilities. So they determine, facilities teams determines what they have. They don't have to involve IT on which changes are going to be made. You can have a site on intranet and one on the internet and one on the intranet. For example, the facility site doesn't have to be outside. It can be internal only. Where IT, you may need to have it outward facing, depending on how you're doing it. It just depends on what you need. So there are a lot more configuration issues that comes into play here when you're talking about multiple sites. Now, a lot of times when Paul and I hear the names of these departments, we always think of things like start with an extra site, human resources, payroll, HIPAA and PCI, accounting and finance, purchasing, engineering change requests, complaint management. That's not always true, but many times it is. So it just depends on the individual usage of the customer on how we're going to look at it. So how can we make it happen? The most important thing is gather that right data. Start laying it out. What new issue types need to be added? Who's going to be submitting and working with the new issues? Who's going to have ownership? What new values need to be added to drop downs? What new fields need to be added to custom screens? What custom screens need to be built? What issue types need to be done? Do you need to create new user-defined fields? Like I said, there may be certain specific types of information that's going to require new fields that you do not have involved in Issuetrak currently. Workflows and tasks needed to be added. I've run into a couple situations lately where I'm doing change requests, and the change request work processes are being added as they need them. So a document flow or a user access change or an engineering change request. Those are all different types of workflows depending on what is being added. Get a test site. If you have an Issuetrak site, premise or cloud, you are allowed to have a test site. Test sites I always recommend to be used. Now, we do not provide you with a test site as soon as we create your cloud site. So when you create a cloud site, we don't automatically give you a test site. You must request one. But when you're doing something like expansion, it's nice to have a test site, and we can clone over the information from your live site into the test, and then you can make changes and modifications to the structures without being afraid of changing your live production site. Now, those things will have to be re-put back in when you're ready into the live site, but it gives you a place to do the testing. If you happen to be a premise customer, then if you can create a second test site from your production site, but no more than that. You're only allowed one test site. So one test site, one production site. Anything more than that, you do need a new key. So that it would require something else. Talk to your sales engineer if you need more than that. But the thing is that test site then allows you to modify your site structure. You can go in and change your organizations, your departments, your projects, your locations. You can strip all the issues out of it. You can do whatever you need to do and start fresh if you need to. I've had that happen before too. But the idea is to give you a place to go. You can add new users and groups. You can add in new issue types and subtypes. You can add in user-defined fields, modify custom screens, add new values, priorities, substatus solutions, whatever you need in order to support it. Add new workflows. Email notifications need to be reviewed. Business rules need to be modified. Quick picks reports. There are a lot of areas that need to be examined and see where they're going to be affected with this new usage. Other things, you want to start your testing with users. Making sure that they can't see things they shouldn't. Make sure that they can access what they need to do. And I always recommend documenting your changes. So if you're expanding within a site, document those changes so that you know what you've changed and what you've modified, just in case you have to roll it back, just in case you need to go in there and say, okay, what did I mess up? Or what is causing a problem? Create training materials. You may be modifying training materials from existing sites now because they may see more things, for example. If it happens to be in IT and facilities, and I'm going to use that a lot, but you'll see IT issue types and you'll see facilities issue types, or IT quick picks and facilities quick picks all within one list. Well, what does that mean? How do you want to use it? Roll out your changes to a production environment. It's always good to do that. And you want to rally your internal promoters. So when you get that second group, you would like to have a cadre of promoters to help you along when you get that new usage added to your existing site. And you like to grow your users organically so that you can go ahead and keep moving forward with adding in more users and adding in more additions. Because as you start building into the sites, then hopefully you'll get other people who are also involved, because again, you're expanding that ROI. Now, so I'm going to show you in a minute or two. I'm going to actually go into a site that I have set up that has set up with multiple usage. So I can show you a few of the things that I've used in order to set it up. But some of the things that you want to look at, you may need to expand the way your users submit issues, perhaps by adding incoming email or web forms. So you may want to change how you do things there. You want to expand your sites might require adding additional departments to segregate data. A lot of people don't set up departments initially. They may need to add them later on. You may need to enable classes in order to separate your data, and I'll show you some of that capabilities. Restricting quick picks. For example, a HR site might bring on an onboarding, on offboarding quick pick. Well, we don't want that to be seen by all users. We only want to restrict it to managers. And the screen text on custom screens, you may consider adding it to get additional information. So there are a lot of different things and examples in here that you may want to look. Now, before I go into the site that I'm going to show, I'm going to go ahead and give you a couple financial considerations in here. And these are the things you're going to turn to Tony on, because he's going to be the one that you want to talk about. Agents. You have, let's say that you have a group of agents. Let's say you have 35 agent users, and you want to go ahead and build another site. Well, you can move some of those agents around. You could take a couple of those agents and repurpose them to use for the new site. So you may end up with, say, 25 in one site and 5 on another, and you haven't increased your agent cost on that. You just moved them over to a new site. We do allow that. But many times what happens is that when you add a new usage, You may want to plan on adding at least 1 or 2 new agent users. I always say at least 1 agent user for a department that you're going to have. You've got to have someone who's going to be responsible for the issues when they get to that department. Usually you're going to create something like an auto assignment rule or a quick pick that's going to assign an issue to a member of that department. Could be a group or it could be an agent user, but it's usually going to involve at least 1 agent user. So when you talk about expansion, normally you're going to look at 1 agent user being that, and that's a minimum on that. You actually could need many of them. It could be many agent users that you need because you're expanding to a different department. You're deciding that you're going to do more work with it, and you know what your costs are going to be when you do that. As I talked about modules, you may require the new module. You may decide that you want to use the billing module, for example, in order to help you with customer billing. You may decide that you want to keep up with hours and type of work. So you decide to go into service work, for example. Several of our customers use the billing module in order to help them with service work so they can put in billing line items against their issues. And then professional services. Paul and I stand ready to help you whenever you do expansion. We try to keep you from making mistakes. We try to make sure that you go down the right path. We're your consulting advisors with Issuetrak that try to make sure that you don't make mistakes and that you do it the right way. Hopefully our experience and where we've made mistakes in the past will help you so you don't have to live through some of the things that we have experienced. So we're here to help you out. Usually a couple of hours, sometimes more. Sometimes we get into situations where there's just not enough time in the day for you to do your normal job and to do this work. We can offer you also managed services for that. So I've done this a couple of times with some customers where in managed services, I've actually logged into their site and I have done the expansion for them. They give me general information and then I go and do the grit work. I do the issue types, I add in the workflows, I add in all the organizations. We can do that for you. I've done it on both premise and on cloud customers. So if there's something that you need and you just don't feel like you have the time and it needs it as fast as possible, it's still going to take some of your time because I don't know what you want to do. So we have to work together. But I'm doing most of the heavy lifting and I'm doing all the work. Then you're doing most of the testing. That's the way it mostly works. But we can help you with managed services if you need to do that. So let's go ahead and take a quick look. I'm running a little short on time here. Paul says I'm okay, but I'm running a little short. I want to go into this site to just show you a couple of things here. Number one, this site is a training site, and you're going to start seeing this particular site being used in the future as a replacement for our IT training site. And it's going to end up setting us up. Now, in this particular site, it's a multi-use site. We actually have it set up for help desk, manufacturing and quality, operations, and then actually for schools. In this particular site, then what I've done is I've created different issue types. So I've gone in here and I've created issue types that represent the different areas. So here you'll see things like there's some webinar information in here, there's some facilities health in here, change control in here, and you'll see these 1s, 2s, and 3s on the other side. Essentially what these 1s and 2s, these are the custom screens. So this would be essentially operations, school and transportation. Down here, this is help desk. And then down here, the 4, this school, that's going to be education and complaints and line issues, which is mostly manufacturing and quality. So I've separated them out, and even the custom screens look a little different according to which one I'm using. You see shift and lines in here. When you go up here to school and transportation complaints and you see another custom screen, you'll see it's completely different in here. Contact name, specific information about findings and corrective actions because it's complaints. So when you look in here, there are different sets of issues in here. If I go in here and I take a look and I submit an issue, then my drop down from my issues can say, okay, I want to look at this one as a grade dispute. This is an education issue. I'll put in a grade dispute, and this is the structure. It's routed. It's an issue type for grade dispute. It's got information related to it. it's going to be assigned to the school administrator. Now, the school administrator only sees issues that they are assigned to. They can't see outside of what they don't. They don't have can see issues submitted by others. If I go in here and I happen to be looking at something like a new employee. So here I am working on a new, I'm assigned in progress. It's an operations issue. It's going to the human resources area. It's a new employee. It's got the workflow headed on here, and it's assigned to the HR manager. So it's all about structure. It's all about pieces and how they need to route. If I'm going through this one, for example, and I look through it, you may even see that there's going to be an IT technician involved in here. There may be HR managers involved with this. There may be facilities personnel involved with this. Because it's in one site, it gives you that ability to go ahead and create one view of lots of different things that they can do. When I look in the quick pick area, and I'm going to go specifically here to this EEOC one here, I've restricted access to this. I'm using the restricted access by group, saying if you happen to be the education department's facility group or faculty group or the staff, you can use this quick pick. But no other group can see that. It's restricted access. The other part about this is when I go in here and I can add in different areas. For example, I want to create this tab and it's nothing but operations areas. This is using our newest feature in our issue hub, is the ability for us to create tabs that are specific information related to a particular filter. So here I can go in here as an administrator and I can say, you know what, I want another column in here. I can edit the column and I can go in here and I can say, okay, it's in the assigned on, move that over here and drop it. Now, Paul's going to get into more on that. So, but this then, as you start looking at expanding Issuetrak, and with this capability, now you can get tab views of different issues. You still can't see beyond what you see. So if you are visibility controlled, if you're limited by visibility, for example, you only see the issues that you're allowed to see, even though this tab shows more issues for the administrator, you're not going to see them. You're still just going to see what you see. In some cases, you may not even see any issues in there because you're not allowed to see that other area. So all the visibility controls we have related to organizations and departments, related to your permissions of being able to be seen, issues assigned to others, you can restrict that. You can keep things within your area. So you've got a lot of tool sets that Paul and I'll happy to help you with in order to help you keep your visibility the way that you need them. So, has anybody got any questions?
Hey, Mike, one of the questions came up regarding the departments.
Mm-hmm.
Could you, I'm sure you have them enabled on this site, could you expand a little bit on that, how you would leverage that when you bring on the functional teams?
I'm going to actually start then answering this question by going into the feature set, because I think you have to start there with this one. As you know, departments is an optional item that can be turned on in Issuetrak. Well, what happens when you turn on that, you make a selection on whether you want to restrict your visibility from the submitting point of view or from the assigned point of view. Usually when I expand out, I'm looking on the assigned side, not the submitting side. Because what I'm trying to do is, if I'm going to do restrictions by departments, then I want an issue to be assigned to a group or a user belongs to an IT department. I want them to, the IT department, to see those issues. If it's going to the HR department, I'm going to assign that issue, or I am going to a user or a group that's going to be the HR team. So it's going to be HR issues. So by turning it on and using that restriction, or adding the restriction for responsible department, which kind of overrides either view, it says it belongs to this department, then what happens is the issue, when I go to up here to home screen and I'm going to dashboard, my default views are all going to be controlled by either the submitting department membership or the assigned department membership. And I'm going to use assigned department mostly, as I said, with expansion, because that's how it looks. Once the issue is assigned to a department, that's who it belongs to. There are some caveats to that having to do with responsible department and where users are, but for the most part, the rules would say, I want to look at things from here. So I would go to, say, dashboard settings, and I would look here for issues by department assigned, which I think I already have on here, right here.
Yep.
That's the panel that I would be concerned with. I wouldn't look so much at the submitting department because I'm really looking at the assignment department. That's really what I'm looking for. And that's what my view is going to be. So facilities, transportation, customer service, quality, APAR, ops and facilities, these are all the issues that are in those departments. So when I look here, I would expect them to be restricted access to those departments only. Does that answer the question?
Yep.
Okay. It can get sticky. That's why you want to have Paul and I involved with those. Just nothing else, just to talk to you about them.
Yeah, like Mike.
With it.
And like Mike said, there's no, we have a usual thing that we do, but that doesn't fit every situation, right? We always want to gather the information, right? We want to go back, like we said, like I always get hung up here, planning, right? Thinking about what you're going to do before you do it, right? That's what my dad used to tell me. Think about what you're going to do before you do it. And I never did I?
And what Paul and I are going to do is guide you down the right tool set. That's what we're going to, what tool do you want to use in Issuetrak in order to do what you want to do? And that's what we're going to do, is try to give you the right information.
Yep.
Anything else?
I think we're good for a break here.
Okay. Want to take 5 minutes?
I think so. I think you deserve 5 minutes at least here.
I can't talk anymore.
Fantastic job, Mike. That was awesome.
You.
I think everybody that's our attendees here, we're going to take about a 5-minute break, and we'll come back right at the top of the hour, and I'll get into new capabilities and a deep dive into those new capabilities. All right.
Because it's the Issue Hub, which is a really powerful feature.
Yeah, that's what it is. They don't need to know that though till we get to the top of the hour. Hey. All right, everybody. We'll see you in 5 minutes.